She ran into the kitchen, grabbed a mixing bowl, and got my dad out of bed. And by the time we got to the driveway to head to town, the mixing bowl was almost completely full of blood. And I knew that if something did not change, I was going to die in that truck before we got to the ER. And I just kept repeating, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. That's as scared as I'd been with my CF at that point. At 24, I was on oxygen 24/7. I could not walk across the floor without giving out. I had no energy. I was basically homebound. I didn't want to go out in public with oxygen around my face. I didn't want anybody to see me like that. I knew at that point they'd be like, oh, something's different with her. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to still feel normal. So I was homebound. Well, at that time, my lung functions were 21%. So they've declined even more. I had went in for a doctor's appointment, and from the doctor's appointment, I was so bad that I was directly admitted to the hospital. We were allowed to go home and get some things, and my doctor pulled my mom aside and told her, at this point, you're not going to bring your baby girl back home. She will die in the hospital. And my mom never told me this. She kept that to herself, held it together, drove me to the hospital. When I was in the hospital, the doctor came into the room and told me that I needed to reconsider my double lung transplant. That even though it'd be miserable after the double lung transplant due to my allergy to the medication, at least it would buy me a little bit of time. And if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't make it out of that hospital. And I couldn't accept that. You want to talk about scared? That's the scariest I've ever been with my CF. Being told at 24 you're on your deathbed, all the different things that you haven't experienced yet start going through your mind. I could handle dying, and I could handle not having a future, but I couldn't handle my parents having to bury their daughter. I couldn't imagine that thought. My mom had just lost her sister and her dad, and I saw what it put her through. And I knew she couldn't handle it. So to our knees we went. We started praying like never before, and we were on so many prayer lists, I can't even begin to name them. I was given a prayer cloth to put underneath my pillow, and we started to believe in the healing that was going to come. I knew my life couldn't be over because what purpose had I served? So God stepped in that hospital and healed my body. There's no other explanation for it. He healed me He didn't just heal me from that one infection. A lot of times you go into the hospital and you're healed long enough to go home and have a little bit of life until you're back in the hospital. He didn't just heal me from the one infection. He healed my body to a state that it hadn't been at in over 13 years. My lung functions went up to 42.5% laying in that hospital bed. He gave me a second chance at life. So, after I was discharged, I started taking immaculate care of myself. I went from rebellion to living in a bubble because I didn't want to get sick again. And so when wintertime come around, I didn't go out. I didn't want to be around the people that I knew that would get me sick. So I was in a bubble. I could have been like the Bowler Girl if they would have actually had a bubble. I would have went out in public in a bubble. I was cool with that. I didn't want to become on my deathbed again. I knew what that felt like. I didn't want that. So when wintertime come, I missed all kinds of stuff. Birthdays, events. I just refused to go because I didn't know if someone would show up sick. Even if I knew my friends and family wasn't sick, I couldn't predict who would show up, so I didn't go. Well, in 2012, I had another really bad year. I stayed on IV antibiotics for almost the entire year, and I had a cancer scare, which led to a hysterectomy. That was pretty scary.